Oklahoma City Thunder, dog. The Oklahoma City Thunder have been fantastic, sensational, amazing, and probably one of the biggest surprises so far this season. As we record this video right now, with how everything is like mapping out and going so far, the Thunder have actually found themselves with the number one seed in the Western Conference. They are going on a run as of late. In the last, I want to say in the last 10 games, they have a record of 7-3. They've been one of the better teams in the entire association. In particular, when you look at offensive defensive rating, they're top 5 in both offense and defense, with the second best net rating in the league, which is really, really impressive. A net rating of nearly +8 is like almost unheard of, but by far, probably, and I do mean by far, the most impressive thing about the Oklahoma City Thunder is that this is a young team. It's almost unheard of for a team that is this young, that is going to be this good, this potent. Chat, I want you to guess how young the average age of OKC is. Put in the chat real quick. 24, 20. This nigga said 12. Okay. Average age of OKC, 23 years old. 23. Second youngest team in the NBA, right behind the San Antonio Spurs, and they have every making of an elite level team. Again, top 5 in both offense and defense. Second best net rating, only behind the Boston Celtics. And in particular, they have a young guy out here who is terrorizing the league with isolations and pull-up jumpers by the name of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, a young superstar on the rise. But before I get into him, because there's a lot of other things to really, really talk about, 3 things that we got to break down before we get into Shai. The first one is probably going to be the most underrated player on the roster that probably gets overlooked the most, in large part because he kind of plays he's second fiddle really right now, but he's third most important because a lot of people have put a lot of hype behind Chet. And that player is Jalen Williams, J-Dub. Shout out to the big dog, J-Dub in the building, dog. So far this season, he is having a really, really, really great game. J-Dub, give me 19 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists for the season. Shooting splits have been out the wazoo, 54, 44, and 80. And having this type of like dynamic play on your roster is certainly something special. At 22 years old, J-Dub is really producing at levels in which I don't think many people thought he was going to be producing this early on. Shout out to the Oklahoma City Thunder and their drafting selection as well. 12th overall pick in the 22nd draft. So many teams overlook J-Dub if we go through it. Jalen Dub got picked after Jeremy Sohan, got picked after Shaedon Sharp, Dyson Daniels, Jaden Ivey. So many players were selected above him. You could very well argue outside of, Chet, Jabari. Chet, could you argue that he's the third best player in this draft? Paolo, obviously, then Chet. You could very well argue that J-Dub is the third best player in this draft, selected 12th overall, and what a find for the Oklahoma City Thunder. You're talking about a young player giving you 20 points on a night-to-night basis, can create his own shot, isolation, great three-point shooter, floor spacer, 6'5", can play both wing position, but a nice stocky 6'5" as well, because he goes out there, plays a little bit above his size, has some athleticism to his belt as well. Solid defender. Probably the biggest thing that separates him from a lot of other young players is that if he really needs to, he can sit on it, he can perform really well on that side of the floor while still providing you with those 19 points on a night-to-night basis. The more impressive thing that I saw about him, especially as of late, for the people out there who always catching us on the stream all the time, shout out to the young brother out there, Real Talk. He talks about it all the time. As of late, he's been even more impressive than normal. He's the points averages up to a 21-point score, 5 assists, 4 rebounds. Shooting splits are also miraculous, 56, 46, and 74. Again, he does these things at the age of 22, brother. Like at 22, he has stretches also. And what's crazy is I think it's getting better. I think in the last handful of games when we have been watching him here on playback, as you can see, over the last handful of games, the numbers continue to go up as well. Basically in the last month of basketball or so. And actually, let's make it the last month of basketball. Last 10 games, he's been averaging around 22, 5, 4, shooting splits of 56, 43, 82. That's encompassing a bad game. If we remove that bad game, as you can clearly see, the numbers go up even further. So J-Dub, who's probably not going to get a lot of love in these conversations. J-Dub, someone who is going to go underneath the radar. He's actually a massive difference maker for this team. You can argue he's the X factor. He's a player that is the difference maker for what this team needs to provide as giving them a secondary volume scorer. He's probably going to kind of play a lesser role as time progresses, as Chet continues to develop. But as we are here now, you have to give him his flowers. He's been playing really, really great. 22 years old, giving you a 20-point score, very efficient, something I don't think we all have seen. Second thing, Chet. Wemby gets a lot of love, and understandably so. I think Wemby is having the greatest rookie season we may have ever seen in NBA history, so you got to give him his props. But Chet Holmgren, in any other situation, Chet would be dominating the rookie race so far. He's averaging 17 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists, shooting splits of 50% 64, almost 40% and 78% from the charity stripes. There's two things that you have to really talk about when Chet, when we're talking about how dynamic he is as a player. Standing at 7'1" with a ridiculous wingspan, the length behind it, it's what really separates him from, again, a lot of other young players defensively. He's really, really great. I was looking at this stat because I was looking at what Wemby's doing so far this season, and Chet's name kept getting brought up in a lot of these conversations. But again, I think a lot of people aren't really talking about it. When protecting the paint, protecting the rim attempts, you would not believe where some of these young players do rank. Shout out to Wemby. Wemby is right here holding opponents at 53% at the basket, but Chet Holmgren is also 53% at the rim. 53% at the rim for Chet and also Wemby. That is on par with Brook Lopez, Anthony Davis, Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, in the same bar with Kristaps Porzingis, not too far from Rudy Gobert, Joel Embiid, and these are rookies. Shout out to Walker Kessler. Sub 50% is ridiculous. But Chet Holmgren at this stage of his career, already being an elite level rim protector while also providing you the level of offense that he does as well, is why he is separating himself from quite a few different conversations that, again, if it wasn't for Wemby, we will be having much more steeper talks about who Chet is as a player. He is undeniably one of the better rim protectors in the league, and the dynamic of an offensive weapon. I think it's something actually very, very similar to what we see with Kristaps Porzingis out in Boston, where you have somebody who can provide rim protection, who can provide a little bit of rebounding, who can provide a bit more dynamic and backline help defensively, while also providing a level of floor spacing, while also providing a level of offense and shot creation, while also provide a level of mismatches as well. Because Chet, though he's that tall, though he's that lengthy, he doesn't really present like a massive mismatch. And pick and pop merchant love to stay at the top of the key. We're talking about 42% above the break. Chet Holmgren so far this season, while also being really great at the restricted area. But as we all know, the engine starts and stops with the player who is trying to make the argument to win MVP, and that is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Shai is having a historic season so far this year. And I think that many people want to have the conversation about MVPs and what they're supposed to be doing and how great they are. And of course, Luka's name will get brought up, Jokic. Now Jason Tatum is getting a lot of love as well. But now with the number one seed, I think that Shai who's already been in the conversation, should further insert himself in those talks. So far this season, he's averaging 31 points, 6.5 assists, 5.5 rebounds, leading the league in steals with 2.1 a game, and shooting splits of 55, 38, 88%. I don't even know where to start with the Shai Glaze. Shout out to Tank Jones in the chat. Hey, Tank gonna let it be known what's really going on. Tank gonna let y'all know. Most consecutive games with 30 points on 4 or fewer turnovers. Michael Jordan, Shai this season, Shai again, and then Kobe Bryant. That's it. I also want to believe that Shai is like one of the very few players in NBA history. He dipped below 55%, but Shai is one of the very few players in NBA history to average 31 points while shooting like 55% from the field. Great shot creator. You could very well argue best isolation player in the NBA. Mid-range accuracy is on par with like Kevin Durant and company, one of the best mid-range shooters in the association. But more importantly, I think that the reason why I think a lot of people are high on Shai, a lot of people are high on a lot of these players on this team, is simply because a lot of what they do is going to translate. Shout out to Lou Dort. He's starting to shoot threes. Shout out to Isaiah Joe. He shoots threes as well. Great floor spacing for an organization that is the number one most accurate three-point shooting team in the league, shooting nearly 40% on threes. And when you get that level of floor spacing, this level of offensive capability with that level of shot creation with Shai, it provides a lot of value to what I think a lot of people are going to believe this team is going to do in the upcoming postseason run. Are they going to win a championship? Probably not. I think experience is what really holds a lot of people back from having this conversation. But I do beg the question, like, why not? Why do we try to put cap on some of these younger players, especially when they've already provided the evidence that they can do the things that are necessary to win? It'd be one thing if Shai was a heavily flawed offensive player, but he's not. It'd be one thing if Chet was heavily flawed as a rim protector, but he's not. It'd be one thing if J-Dub as the second or third option was struggling to create efficient points, but he's not. It'd be one thing if Lou Dort wasn't an improved three-point shooter, but he's not. Isaiah Joe three-point shooter, but he's not. The only thing that really questions us is Josh Giddey. He's a new Ben Simmons. No one is really defending him on the perimeter, which does clog the lane a lot of times. They did provide an answer to that potentially by going after Gordon Hayward. However, Hayward has not looked really good so far this season. But outside of that one conundrum that they have to solve, the Oklahoma City Thunder being number one seed should not be surprising to a lot of teams, a lot of people, the NBA community. If you are asleep, please wake up. This is an organization that will be relevant for the foreseeable future. This is a team that is the second youngest team in the NBA. They're Their best player is 25 years old. They have a 7'1" rim protecting guard that can also be a great pick and pop player as well to open up the floor even further for Shai and company. And then you have a second option who can shot create in J-Dub, who's also a really solid defender. I also think the team is coached magnificently well, so the sets that they run really opens up the game even further, really makes it hard for teams to defend them, especially what they do at the top of the key, the misdirection, the misguidance a little bit there as well. And all around, you look at a young team that's being top 5 in defense, it's almost unheard of as well. So it's going to be a long decade. The next 10 years is going to be interesting. Shout out to Wemby and them with San Antonio, but there's a lot of questions that they have to answer. But the second youngest team in the NBA has the #1 record out in the Western Conference. And I think the only thing that is stopping people to jumping on this bandwagon is age. That's really it. If this was a team that had a little bit more postseason experience, and I understand this, you get it. But if that's the only question that I think a lot of us are having right now, it's going to be interesting to see how they answer that call. I'm excited to see what the Oklahoma City Thunder are going to be in the upcoming postseason run, especially with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander playing at the level in which he's playing at, MVP caliber player, playing at historic heights. And more importantly to me, chat, before we go, where do you rank Shai in the league so far? Fifth, fourth, sixth? I also have him like top 5, top 6 player in the NBA. I think he's right under Anthony Davis, and I'm happy to see what he can do in the postseason to further solidify that. But yo, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Let me know where you rank Shai, just like everybody else in the chat did. Let me know where you rank Shai in the season. Where do you rank the Oklahoma City Thunder as title contending teams? How impressed you are that the second youngest team in the NBA has snatched the #1 seed? And do you believe that Shai should win MVP? And until next time, I'll see you all later. Peace.